Hello, I'm the Blue Oak Iron Wings. Okay, let's do assembly now. First, I'm going to put the Extractor Claw into there. If I put it in plastic, hopefully that'll help hold it together so it doesn't split. Or at least it'll clamp it into place when it does. So the little hole on this might be a good idea if it's not quite right to either edit the STL, sorry, the STL generated by the OpenSCAD file, or just sort of sand it down somehow. But yeah, looks like I've already split it a little bit. Well, we'll see if that survives. Yeah, well, it's an external piece, so if it all goes horribly wrong, I can just print another one with a bigger / better hole in it, but clamp it down. Don't forget the spring. Okay, this is the reach, that's the plunger tube, and I've got the plunger rod in there. The next thing to do is to assemble the barrel magazine assembly. Now these are friction fit. Something that you'll have to consider is that, particularly on this one, when you print it, you'll be doing it this orientation. So this side will be on the bed. So if you get any slight elephant's foot, these will make the entrance holes feel smaller than they are. So you might just need to clean up your edges if they're not perfect. Otherwise you'll think you've got a size that doesn't fit. Now, depending on how you feel, either remember to put on your pump grip before you put the ends on, or if you're using the stock one, you can screw it on afterwards. Don't forget to put in the magazine spring and the follower. And on this side, don't forget to put the little rubber grommet that sits around the back of the barrel. When you push all this together, it's friction fit. So you're probably going to do a whole load of wiggling and pushing, or like I did, put it on here and just tap it gently with the rubber side of a hammer just to drift it in. But once you've kind of got it in roughly the right place, you'll need to make sure that the shells sit and fit correctly. Because if you do what I did initially and you hammer it all the way home, the barrel will kind of sit here, as far as it'll go. And this sits far too far back, and though it does work, the breech doesn't go all the way forwards, it's a little bit ugly. And if the barrel's too far forward, this will sit too far forward, and your extractor claw will not fit around it. So ideally you want it so this sits firmly, but there's enough space for the extractor claw to go over. What I ended up doing was basically sitting this under there and using that as a starting point. So this is the old extractor claw. So what I did in the end was I drifted in the barrel with the hammer as far as it would go, making sure everything was straight and level. Then I kind of wiggled to pull the barrel back out. Now this shell sits there. So what you want to do is seat the shell in there, and perhaps do this before you do the extractor claw, because use it, but you've got the little indentation there, so you kind of know how far forward the extractor claw goes, and you want to make sure that the tooth on the extractor claw will fit under there. Perhaps leave a little bit of a gap, because again it's got to ride over and sit under, but the extractor claw needs to be able to get its claw in front of the rim of the shell so that it can actually pull that shell out. Well, it's easier when you've got more to hold it with. Okay, the next big thing is fitting this all into the shell. There is an existent guide for this, so I may just ramble through this. I'm going to start with the fiddliest bits that go in hard. You should have already glued together your swinging gate. Put it in, make sure it turns nicely. Oops. And then you want to fit your spring this way up. And we just slot that in there, all the way down over this bit. And now you kind of want to hold it down while you slide in the lifter, which just fits in that hole. Get in there. Next fun bit, so your lifter runs in these tracks here. Oh yeah, and that bit goes through the shell. So we need that down out of the way and this to fit in, but you've got the various bits of the swinging gate in the way. So you need to fit one in the other while fitting it around it and through it. And look, you can see it wants to go in there. And basically it's a bit of backwards and forwards and hoping for the best. Wiggle it around, it'll fit in eventually. There we go, right in the forward position. This will make the whole thing a bit ungainly to work with, but it's a tight fit, so it'll be less stress to figure out how to fit this in. I've had it in once already, so it may have tied up a bit already. So that goes there. Push that spring in, and the spring needs to fit on the spring rest without popping out and exploding in your face. Fairly certain that's like a glass fuse holder. In goes the catch plate with the slopey sides facing forwards. There's the trigger, sanded so it'll actually move. Here's another view of all those brass inserts, well worth doing, but yeah, plan ahead. Now here we need to make sure we fit the spring into here, and the spring's pushing that way, so we need to kind of start more left and work forwards, and then line up all the various holes. Okay, spring home. Found the Extractor Claw. Okay, be gentle. Okay, now we need to fit a bunch of these screws in. I'll start remembering which ones go where. Right, I'll screw this in and get back to you. It's all back together. This is actually quite a tough blaster to use, because not only are you compressing this hefty spring, but when you're pulling this back to lever that down, you're doing a big effective motion on this little bit here, so it's a hard lever to push, and you're fighting against the spring here. Now when I printed this at point 2, there was issues with it being very steppy, which made it even worse and caught even more, and again would have caught under here. So I printed this at 0.12mm, and if you can print finer in the future or whatever, do that. But the very first time I did this, I had to actually put it on the desk and use both hands and just absolutely slam it down. Do you see what I mean? You act against the spring, which is sliding on this bit here, and you're pushing that entire spring on a tiny leverage here. But once it was initially primed, you're not fighting the spring, you're just fighting the lever. So the spring is now fully primed, but you can see how this bit's nice and easy, but as soon as you get to here, you're fighting that ramp and you're pushing on a small leverage against that fairly chunky spring actually, and it's a bit of a struggle to do it, particularly at this unnatural angle. So my advice would be, once you've got the spring compressed, finger off the trigger, just work it backwards and, probably not hear me, work it backwards and forwards a few times, just to help bed it all in. Due to the differences I did in the mag follower, I'm making this part of the muzzle deeper. I have increased the capacity just enough. So stock, this takes 6 shells. So 1, 2, yeah, I know they're not loaded, but I'm just demoing it to you. 3, 4, 5. That's 5. No, that's 6. This is number 7. And look, because previously you got to about there, but with what I've added, we can just about get it in there. So this now has 7. So everyone's going to think you've got 6, but you've got 1 more in there. And that's before considering if you've got 1 in there as well. So actually, I suppose in theory, you could have 8 in this. I'm fairly certain whether it's got my bits or somebody else's bits in it or the stock bits. Yeah, you have to slam it. So slam it back to make sure you get one popped out and loaded. And if you load it sideways at the slope like this, it doesn't seem to work. It seems to work better when it's actually level. So you'll have to believe me when I go slam it forwards. And we're going to eject it down the back of the desk. See, there's another one there. I'll have that forwards. Slam that out into my mug. So that was 2 if you're counting. Another one here. 3, 4, 5, 6. Everything's fine. 7. So that works. I will now hold this steady, hold that trigger, which actually moves now it's been sanded, and just let that forward. So there we go. I've not actually fired it yet because, I mean, that's just, well, we know the plunge tube and all this business works. But I've done about 30 pumps just to help bed it in and check all the shells work. So what I will now do is retrieve the other 2 shells from under the desk, put 50 shots over the chrono, and hopefully it doesn't break itself, and I can put some chrono numbers on the end of this. So thanks for watching.